A trade target that would fundamentally change the Patriots draft. That's where we start on this episode of Locked On Patriots.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Patriots fans? I'm your host, Nick Cattles, born and raised in New England, your New England Patriots expert, host of the Everything Pats podcast, co-host of the Greg Bedard Patriots podcast with Nick Cattles, and also a sports talk show host veteran. On today's episode, free agency could end up opening the door to a draft night trade and the latest 3-round mock draft from two of the best. But first, there could be a way for the Pats to have their cake and eat it too on Thursday night. We appreciate you joining the show, making us your first listen, and for being an everydayer. The Locked On Patriots podcast is a proud partner of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Check out the Locked On NFL mock draft, by the way. That episode was released yesterday. There's an unhappy established left tackle, and the Patriots should 100% be on the phone ready to pounce. Here's the latest from Deshaun Reed of The Athletic, writing about left tackle Kolton Miller. Miller has not reported to the Raiders' voluntary offseason program as he seeks a contract extension, according to a team source. Miller is going into the final year of a 3-year contract extension he signed in 2021. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler posted, Las Vegas has not engaged in contract talks with Miller. So Las Vegas has not even had conversations with Kolton Miller about a contract extension as Miller is walking into the final season of his current contract. That's an issue, and it has Miller unhappy. And an unhappy left tackle who was established is good news for the Patriots. If there's any left tackles out there that could possibly be traded for before this draft, that's good news for the Patriots because it gives them an opportunity. Miller, don't get it twisted. He's bona fide. If you look at last season, got off to a slow start, was much better over the final 2 months of the season, and Pro Football Focus had Miller ranked as their 14th best tackle in football. You're talking right and left side. He was a top 15 tackle last year. Kolton Miller allowed only 2 sacks after Vegas's Week 10 bye. He shut guys down. He shut pass rushers down. He got better and better in the run game as the season went on. You want to talk about bona fide credentials? Miller has bona fide credentials. There's no projection needed for Kolton Miller. We can talk about any player in this draft. Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks, Josh Simmons, Ariante Ursery, anybody that you want to have a conversation about that's going to be drafted next week. There's projection. You don't know if any of them are going to work out. They might all work out. Will Campbell might end up being a stud left tackle. He might end up being a stud left guard. Kelvin Banks might never do anything in the NFL. We have no idea. Josh Simmons with his knee. You have no idea, no clue what he's going to be at the NFL level. Kolton Miller, no projection needed. You know exactly who he is. And who he is a top 15 tackle in the game of football, according to Pro Football Focus. That's good enough for me. If the Raiders are open to a trade, inevitably the question is, what is the price going to be? We could sit here and dream of all sorts of guys in the league that you want to trade for. You want that guy, you want this guy, but is that guy or this guy actually available? Are the Raiders really going to trade Kolton Miller? Would they even entertain the idea? Or is this just contractual games being played by the franchise while they know that he's a franchise left tackle and they don't want to get rid of him in any kind of way? It certainly seems like they're pushing the envelope a little bit with Miller to the point where he's unhappy. He knows he's walking into the final year of his contract. They know he's walking into the final year of his contract, and he's wondering why we haven't had any conversations. What's going on? So what would the price be? I would imagine the Patriots would start with the 3rd round pick. You're looking at pick 69. I think that's where you start because the Patriots, if Miller became available, the Patriots could tell the Raiders, look, we like Kolton Miller, but he's going to be 30 years old in October. We start there. He's going to be 30 years old. Beyond the fact that he's going to be 30 in October, which isn't as big of a deal as if we were talking about a skill position player, because there are plenty of offensive linemen that age just fine. But the Patriots could push back if the Raiders are asking for too much in their estimation and say, he's going to be 30 in October, and we're going to have to pay him a contract, because that's your entire beef. If you want a reasonable offer, you have to understand that we trade for that guy. We also have to pay him a ton of money, because Miller, this is according to Tashawn Reed again from The Athletic, Miller is set to make a salary of a little over $12.2 million this upcoming season, but none of that money is guaranteed. He's not guaranteed a dime. His total cash earnings of $12.3 million would rank just 15th among NFL left tackles. So if you're trading for Kolton Miller, you have to give up a pick, if not multiple picks, and you also have to give him a big, fat contract extension. And when you look at his level of play, top 15 tackle, 14th according to Pro Football Focus, he's going to want $20 million, $22 million a year. And this is where the offseason impacts the Patriots' plans and how much they would have to pay somebody like Miller. Because you've got somebody like, Dan Moore out there, and he's making the kind of money that he got from Tennessee. And now Kolton Miller can say, well, Dan Moore got like $20 million a year from Tennessee. If Dan Moore's getting $20 million a year, I deserve $22, $23, $24 million a year. I'm better than he is. So you not only would have to trade an asset or assets to bring Miller in, you would also have to pay him a big fat chunk of money, and you're paying him at the beginning of that contract extension in his aged 31 season. Now, maybe the Raiders would push back and say, we're not going to trade this guy for 69th overall. We're not going to trade him for a third-round pick. You got to give us a second. And maybe the Patriots would have to come back and say, we'll give you a second if you give us Miller and a fourth. But unequivocally, the Patriots should be on the phone. I'd be surprised if they're not on the phone already. I'd be surprised if they haven't had conversations before this story came out. People in the league talk, agents talk. They have to know that Kolton Miller is not happy right now with his contract situation with the Raiders. They know they have a gigantic hole at left tackle. They know the draft is a week away. Get on the phone. Now, the $100 million question is this. How much conviction do the Patriots have in the idea that Will Campbell is a left tackle? If you believe that Will Campbell is a left tackle with every fiber of your being, and you have almost zero doubt that Campbell is that guy, if you feel that way, if you believe that, if that's your evaluation, then the Patriots won't make a trade. Because why would you trade for a left tackle if you feel like Will Campbell is your answer to that biggest problem on your roster? Campbell's only 21 years old. He just turned 21 in January. He won't be 22 until the season is just about over. That's crazy. He's only 21, just old enough to drink a few months ago. Now, of course, he went to LSU. He's a college football player. Probably drank already, right? But you get the point. Because if you have conviction, if you believe Campbell is that guy with everything in your soul, and you're willing to stand up on the table for Will Campbell as a left tackle, if you feel that way, then you're not going to make this trade, because you'd be giving up an asset, if not multiple assets, and you'd be giving up tens of millions of dollars when you would have the answer staring you right in the face at number 4, who happens to be 21 years old and is not going to cost you the kind of money that Kolton Miller is going to cost you. So that's the $100 million question. Do the Patriots truly feel like Campbell's a left tackle? They're super confident in that. Because if so, I doubt they pulled the trigger. I am not 100% certain that's the case. So I'm on the phone. Speaking of trades, the Pats could have the perfect partner to deal down in round 1 That's next as we continue with today's episode of Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. It's all about finding the right talent. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Easy, fast hiring, posting a job free and simple within a day, multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. You notice something? There's been zero talk about Mason Graham over the past few weeks. Early in this process, everybody was talking about Mason Graham. Mason Graham could be the guy. Mason Graham could be the pick at number 4. Before free agency, Mason Graham this, Mason Graham that. Now, I think people have slowed down the Mason Graham talk because the Patriots obviously went out and they signed Milton Williams. We know that Christian Barmore was working out at the voluntary program just about a week or so ago. So people have started to pump the brakes on Mason Graham to the Pats. But Mason Graham could actually be the answer to the Patriots trading down prayers that I'm sure that they have been sending to the sky. Here is what Burt Breer recently wrote at SI about the Chicago Bears. I would say finding help on the interior of the defensive line would be good. Ditto for the idea of difference-making running back. But if Mason Graham and Ashton Jeanty are gone, I'm not sure there's a guy at either of those spots worthy of going at 10. The Patriots could have leverage. If Chicago is looking for defensive line help, interior defensive line help, Mason Graham is the best interior defensive lineman of this draft. If you look at the production and you look at what he has done, not only as a pass rusher, but really his just overall game, the TikTok, we talked about it in recent podcasts. So when you look at Mason Graham, you feel, if Chicago feels like pretty much everybody else feels, that Mason Graham is the best interior defensive lineman in this draft, and that's the position that they need. So not only is it a position of need, but it's one of the better players in this draft. You have to believe Chicago is at least entertaining the idea of, hey, could we move up to draft Graham? And if it's not Graham, how about Ashton Jeanty? The Patriots could have leverage because if it is Mason Graham, we all know that Graham has been linked. He has been linked to Jacksonville pretty much for the past couple of months. And here is Burt Breer writing about Jacksonville's interest in Graham. Liam Cohen and James Gladstone cut their NFL teeth working for the Rams, where a defense was built around an ox-strong, undersized, hard-playing defensive tackle. I'm not saying that Graham is Aaron Donald, but just last year, Gladstone followed that path to a trade up for Brendan Fisk in LA. Cohen was in Tampa last year and coached in practice against another guy like that, Kalijah Kancey. So when you look at it, Chicago could be interested in Mason Graham. If they're interested in Mason Graham, if he's near the top of their board, well, they've got to look at Jacksonville because Jacksonville has been linked with Graham forever. So what would you have to do to be able to draft Graham before Jacksonville gets their hands on him? You would have to leapfrog Jacksonville. Jacksonville is picking 5th. The Patriots pick 4th. Connect the dots. Ashton Jeanty is another interesting aspect of all of this. Maybe it's not Graham. Maybe Chicago's interested in Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty is seen as the 3rd best player in this draft. You could argue he's the 3rd blue chip prospect. I've been saying there's 2 blue chip prospects in this draft that we know of going into it. And that, of course, is Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. But you could debate that Ashton Jeanty is also a blue chip prospect. Think about Ben Johnson and what he did in Detroit. David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, that 1-2 combo, that punch in the backfield. I don't think it's crazy to think that Ben Johnson would be enamored with Ashton Jeanty. If you're Chicago, you have a lot of the pieces put together on offense. You've got your offensive line mostly figured out after the free agency period, the trades that you made. You brought in Tooney. You brought in Jonah Jackson. You've got most of that offensive line figured out, if not all of it, pretty much settled. Really worked on that interior. And you've got receivers. You're fine there. You've got your young quarterback. You've got a tight end in Cole Kmet. Ashton Jeanty could be the final piece of making the Chicago offense truly devastating. And if you are Chicago, and instead of Graham, you're looking at Jeanty because you think Jeanty is the third best player in this draft, well, guess who's been linked to Jeanty? That would be the Las Vegas Raiders. So if you look at this draft and the way it unfolds, if Chicago wants Graham or Jeanty, they're at the top of their board. If that's the case, well, Graham could go 5th, Jeanty could go 6th. You could jump to 4 and have your swing at both guys and pick the one that you want the most. So I don't think it's nuts to believe that Chicago could be willing to move up. And Mike Giardi at Boston Sports Journal, he came out with his latest mock draft. And interestingly enough, Mike had the Patriots trading the 4th pick in the 171st pick to Chicago for the 10th pick and the 41st pick. I'd be all in on that trade. If you could trade 4 and 171 for 10 and 41, I would be all in on that trade. Because if you're sitting at 10, you still have these possible names waiting for you. Will Campbell could fall to 10. Now, I don't think it's very likely, but he could fall to 10. Kelvin Banks, likely going to be there at 10. There's rumors about Banks in San Francisco. San Francisco picks 11th. So Banks could be there. Josh Simmons will almost certainly be there at 10. Jalen Walker might be there. Tyler Warren might be there. You could get your pick of one of the 2 wide receivers, Tet or Matthew Golden. So you move down to 10, but you still have one of the best 6 or 7 guys that are left over in that group after you get past Carter and Hunter and really Cam Ward and Ashton Jeanty. If you're sitting there at 4 and Carter and Hunter are off the board, you have no chance at them. You don't need a quarterback for obvious reasons. So Cam Ward was never of interest to you. And we went through Ashton Jeanty in the thought process of, hey, would you draft Ashton Jeanty at 4? I would not. Positional value, positional versatility, all those different things that we have talks about, and we've discussed what the needs are for this football team. So I don't think the Patriots would draft Jeanty at 4. So once you get past those 4 guys, Jeanty, Ward, Carter, and Hunter, there's a group of like 6 or 7 dudes who to the Patriots are almost the same kind of guy. So if you drop from 4 to 10, you will still get one of those guys. It's also much easier to deal back into the first round if you made this deal because you now have 2 second-round picks. So if you didn't draft your tackle at 10 after moving down, you now have more ammunition to move back into round 1 to draft your tackle if that's the way you want to approach this. And you can move back in. Much easier to deal back into that first round. And think, you deal one of those second-round picks, not both of them. So let me just throw this hypothetical at you. Imagine at number 10, you drafted Kelvin Banks. There's the guy that you put at left tackle. So you draft Banks out of Texas. Then you come back and you get his teammate Matthew Golden. You trade back into the first round to get Matthew Golden somewhere in the teens. And then you still have either the 38th pick or the 41st pick, likely the 41st pick. And imagine if you drafted somebody like Donovan Jackson. So now you walk out of the draft with Banks, your left tackle, Golden, a potential wide receiver 1, and Donovan Jackson, who starts at left guard day 1. Left tackle, left guard, wide receiver taken care of. And you still have 2 third-round picks to work with, 69 and 77. And people will talk about this. I've seen Plenty of people talk about it over the last week or two. Day 2 of this draft is truly the meat of the draft. A lot of good football players are going to be drafted day 2. And if you don't trade back into the first, you control day 2. You'd have picks 38, 41, 69, and 77, which gives you plenty of options. Keep your eye on Chicago. All right, 2 of the most respected draft pundits released their 3-round mock draft. We'll discuss what the Patriots did next as we continue with today's episode of Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it is gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With Wi-Fi 6 and 6E, and auto low latency mode, advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds that keep you competitive. We're talking about something that, if you have no gaming interest, also helps you, because you could pretty much watch everything. Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus. It's awesome. You got to check out Fire TV. Head to Amazon.com, Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube, 3rd Gen. Check it out. Fire TV Stick 4K devices. They're absolutely fantastic. Theoretically, as you get closer to the draft, the better the mock draft should be. More information is out there. More evaluation has been done. And the Patriots sitting there at 4, 38, and 69 means that they are going to have tremendous opportunity. Also, you can throw 77 in as well. 4 picks in the first 3 rounds of this draft next week. Opportunity all over the place. And I thought it was interesting, Mel Kiper, Field Yates, they released a 3-round mock draft at ESPN.com, and they alternate picks. So Kiper picks one, Yates comes back and picks the next. That's how this works. And I just thought it was a very interesting draft by both of these guys. Kiper ended up with 2 Patriots picks. Yates ended up with 2 Patriots picks. Kiper got the first 2. Yates got the next 2. Let's start at number 4. This is not going to surprise anybody. Mel Kiper at 4 picked Will Campbell. Here's what Kiper wrote. I know a lot has been made of Campbell's sub 33-inch arm length, 33 inches at the pro day, but he has the footwork and pop to stick at left tackle and keep Drake May clean. So Will Campbell, no surprise. Number 38. This is a bit of a surprise. This is from Mel Kiper. Kenneth Grant. The Patriots spent big to land Milton Williams, and Grant could be a 331-pound run stopper right next to him. He's explosive and instinctive. So Kenneth Grant at 38. Then at 69, it was Field Yates' turn, and he drafted wide receiver Kyle Williams from Washington State. Yates wrote, the Patriots have to give Drake May more pass-catching options. Williams' ability to accelerate to top speed really stands out. And then we wrap it up with pick number 77, again from Yates, Wyatt Millam, who is a guard, going to be a guard at the NFL level. He played at West Virginia. Toughness and dependability define Millam's game. So Campbell, Grant, Williams, Millam are your 4 picks in this ESPN mock draft, 3 rounds, Mel Kiper, Field Yates. My first reaction when I looked at this draft, this is Rabel 101, isn't it? You want to talk about trenches? You want to talk about dominating the line of scrimmage? 3 out of the top 4 picks on the line of scrimmage. 2 offensive linemen and a defensive tackle. I would have to imagine Vrabel would be ecstatic if he walked away from this draft feeling like he had filled both offensive line questions, left tackle and left guard. Have to believe he'd feel great about it. Milam would be your left guard. Campbell would be your left tackle. Have to imagine that would make him happy. Now, the Kenneth Grant pick is the most interesting to me because that's a luxury. At 38, that's a luxury. You already have Christian Barmore, fingers crossed he stays healthy, but you've got Barmore working out in the voluntary program, as I mentioned a few moments ago. You went out and you spent on Milton Williams, and you also have Keion White that I think you could push inside. So do you want to spend the 38th pick on a luxury item like a defensive tackle? I know he's 331 pounds, and I'm not doubting the player. There were games where, Kenneth Grant didn't necessarily jump out at you, but he has tons of potential. Explosive big guy in that middle of the defensive line. But how many interior defensive linemen are you going to play? Williams, Barmore, maybe White. Now, if you tell me the plan is for Keion White to be kicked more to the edge, to the outside, then it makes a little bit more sense. Then you can have a rotation saying to yourself, hey, Barmore, if he's at 75%, you want to take it slow with him because of the blood clots and what happened last season. Then it makes more sense because you can rotate Grant in with Barmore. But if we're talking about Milton Williams playing more percentages of the snap, and he's got to, right? He's got to have a higher percentage of snaps this year with the money he's getting paid. Then do you really want to spend the 38th pick on a guy that might play, 25, 30% of the time versus somebody that you could draft that would play 100% of the time or 80 to 90% of the time? So Grant is the interesting pick out of these four because he's more luxury than necessity. Also, no running back drafted. You had the 4th, 38th, 69th, and 77th pick. No running back drafted. If you're wondering, Dylan Sampson went 76th right before the Patriots picked at 77. I don't know if that changed the math for Field Yates. Sampson took a top 30 visit with the Patriots. And to go back with what we've discussed about running backs and why I would not be going bananas to spend a top 50 pick on running backs in this mock draft, 6 running backs went through the first 3 rounds. 6 running backs. And there was not a single run, quote unquote, at that position in this 3-round mock draft. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Obviously, Field Yates and Mel Kiper, they don't know how this is going to play out. But just going off the mock draft, no run at the running back position, 6 running backs through 3 rounds, which further explains and describes what I was talking about last podcast about the running backs and why I wouldn't be jumping at using one of those top picks, the top 2 picks on a running back. And I see some people wanting to spend the 4th pick on Genty, wanting to spend the 38th pick on somebody like Travion Henderson. And I really like both of those guys. I love both those guys, but this is telling you why. 6 backs through 3 rounds, 4th, 5th, 6th round, 4th and 5th rounds. You're going to have opportunities. You're going to have opportunities to grab one of these running backs. It's such a deep position at this draft. And it's really comforting because there were no trades made for the Patriots in this mock draft from Yates and Kiper. And the Patriots still walk out with what I think is at least 3 likely starters. You're starting left guard, you're starting left tackle. I think there's really no doubt about that. Now the question is, Williams going to be, a starting wide receiver? How does that shake out at camp? But you could walk out with 3 starters and you didn't have to make a trade. This draft is starter talent, not superstar talent, starter talent. I think this draft is more talented than people give it credit for. You are going to be able to find starters in this draft. I said this back in February. I tweeted this out at Nick C Radio. You're going to find guys, 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round. You're going to find starters in this draft. Day 2 is going to be big. All right, that wraps up this edition of Locked On Patriots. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. Reach out to me on Twitter. As I just said, Nick C Radio. Don't forget to throw a comment in on the YouTube channel. Thank you for making Locked On Patriots your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Drafts with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. You get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. You can also check out the Locked On Mock Draft that was released this week. Find both programs on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day and enjoy your weekend.